Mira was just an intern. At least that's what her badge said. She had been on Velen Delta for only 2 weeks. The giant spaceport, floating high above the blue skies of the colony planet, was always busy. Ships of all shapes and colors arrived and departed every hour. Tall aliens with wide eyes walked side by side with humans, trading supplies, parts, and knowledge. For Mira, it was both exciting and a little overwhelming. Her job wasn't very exciting, though. Mostly she organized data logs, checked supply numbers, and brought coffee to the supervisors. Still, she loved it. Being on another planet, surrounded by so many intelligent species, it made her feel like a small part of something great. That afternoon, during her short break, Mira walked down to the loading dock. She liked going there. It was quieter then. The main halls, and she could watch the stars beyond the transparent roof. The dock was mostly empty, except for a few ships waiting for fuel. One sleek silver shuttle stood near the edge. Its surface was smooth like glass, and it reflected the ceiling lights above. Mira moved closer, using the large window of the shuttle like a mirror. She checked her uniform collar and smoothed her hair. She adjusted the strap of her work top. Slightly, it had been bothering her all day. As she leaned closer, the shuttle window shimmered faintly. It was soft, like ripples on a pond, barely visible. She blinked. "That's strange," she said to herself. Mira leaned closer, touching the window gently with her fingers. A cold sensation passed through her hand. Suddenly, thin lines appeared on the glass, forming glowing shapes, symbols. She pulled her hand back quickly, eyes wide. Inside the shuttle, someone was watching. Joran sat quietly in the front seat of the silver vessel. From the outside, the window looked like a mirror, but inside it was clear as day. He had seen the young human approach, fix her appearance, and accidentally trigger the ancient sequence. He narrowed his dark green eyes. This shuttle was not an ordinary transport. It was a vessel built with forgotten technology, part machine, part artifact. Long ago, it had belonged to the Keepers, a powerful group who protected ancient knowledge. Most believed the Keepers were gone, but Joran was one of the last in the window. It was more than glass. It was a living interface, a gate to an old network that only a few could connect to. It hadn't responded to anyone in centuries until now. "Human," Joran whispered, watching her with quiet curiosity. "You've touched something you don't yet understand." Mira stepped back from the ship, a little confused. The symbols faded as quickly as they had appeared. She looked around to see if anyone else had noticed, but the dock was still empty. Shrugging, she shook her head. "Probably just a glitch," she muttered. "Fancy ship tech." She turned and walked back toward the staff corridor, her break almost. Over inside the shuttle, Joran didn't move. His long fingers tapped slowly on the armrest. His mind was racing. He had seen those same glowing symbols during the War of 12 Suns, when the galaxy was almost torn apart by ancient machines. The Keepers had used human voices and hands to control those systems, something the other species had forgotten or denied. But Mira, this quiet, unnoticed intern, had just triggered a dormant interface by accident. Joran stood up from his seat and moved to the window, placing his own hand against the glass where hers had been. No symbols appeared for him, only the cold, silent reflection. "She is the key," he said to himself. Meanwhile, Mira reached her workstation and got back to sorting files. She didn't mention the strange symbols to anyone. Who would believe her? She was just an intern, and people already thought humans were too curious for their own good. Still, as she sat down, her terminal flickered. A small dot glowed in the corner of her screen. She hadn't seen it before. She tapped it gently, and the same soft lines she saw on the shuttle window appeared for just a second before disappearing again. She stared at the screen. Okay, maybe not a glitch. Mira looked around. Everyone else was busy with their own work. No one noticed. She closed the tab and took a deep breath. That night, as the stars sparkled outside the spaceport windows, Mira lay on her bed in the intern dorm. She couldn't sleep. The symbols kept flashing in her mind. She remembered the soft glow, the cold glass, and the feeling that something had recognized her. Far above, in the private docking area, Joran sat inside the shuttle. Again, he replayed the security footage, watching Mira's simple touch awaken symbols that had slept for generations. Her touch had activated the Glimmer Code, a lost form of communication tied to the old AI systems. Most people thought humanity had arrived late to space. Few knew the truth, that humans had once been part of a great alliance, their role hidden in shadows of time. Joran believed Mira might help bring that truth back to light. He smiled slightly, his expression calm but thoughtful. "It begins again," he whispered. The next morning, Mira arrived at the port early. She liked walking through the quiet halls before the crowd arrived. The wide glass walls showed the planet below, glowing softly in the dawn light. Everything looked peaceful, but Mira's thoughts were far from calm. She hadn't told anyone about what happened at the shuttle window. Not even her dorm friend Lonnie. It wasn't fear that stopped her, it was doubt. What if it really was just old tech acting up? Still, the glowing symbols, the cold touch of the glass, and the strange dot on her screen last night. It all felt real. She walked into the control room and sat at her usual desk. The screen in front of her lit up. Her first task was simple checking. Log entries from overnight shuttle landings. She tapped the keys and opened the log system. But as the data loaded, something odd happened. A soft glow appeared again in the corner of her screen. That same small dot. Mira froze. She touched it gently. This time, instead of disappearing, the dot grew into a line of light. Shapes formed glowing. Symbols like the ones on the shuttle window. The shapes moved across the screen like they were alive. Then, her entire screen blinked and turned silver. Lines of unknown code began scrolling fast. She leaned back in her seat, eyes wide. Is this? The symbols weren't in any known language. But somehow, Mira felt like she understood. Not the meaning, exactly, but the feeling. The shapes weren't just words. They were instructions, signals, like they were trying to connect with something deep inside her mind. She quickly looked around. No one had noticed. Most of the supervisors were still in the morning meeting. She whispered to herself, "This has to be a mistake." But then, the screen stopped. The silver light faded. A message appeared, written in simple English. "Human signal detected. Interface partially active." Mira's heart raced. She took a deep breath and closed the window. She didn't want to get in trouble. Maybe this was some hidden program she wasn't supposed to access. She decided not to touch it again, at least not until she understood more. Far above her, in his private lounge, Joran was watching. His room was quiet, dimly lit, and filled with strange orbs and scrolls. He sat at a floating table, eyes fixed on a small screen. The footage showed Mira's terminal. He had placed a silent tracker in the system one that only responded when the code appeared. And today, it had appeared again. He leaned forward, speaking softly to himself. "It speaks to her. Just like before." Joran tapped a symbol on his own device. A 3D image of the old interface appeared above the table. He watched as the symbols lit up one by one. The Glimmer Code had been used by the ancient keepers to hide commands inside machines. The code was special. It needed not just a voice, but a human touch to be unlocked. The other species had long forgotten this. Only a few records remained, hidden deep in private archives. Joran had spent 100 years studying them. And now, here it was again, reawakening inside a young intern who didn't even know what she had done. Later that day, Mira was sent to help in dock section B, an older part of the port with less traffic. She didn't mind. She liked the quiet places. As she walked down the long hallway, she noticed the same silver shuttle parked nearby, the one from yesterday. It looked the same, still smooth, still shining. Mira glanced at the window where she had touched it. For a moment, she thought she saw a soft light flicker behind the glass. Someone was inside. She stepped closer. The shuttle door suddenly opened with a soft hiss. Mira jumped back a little. A voice called out, calm and smooth, "No need to be afraid." A tall figure stepped down from the shuttle. He had grayish skin, long black hair tied neatly, and wore a dark coat with golden trim. His eyes were deep green, and though his face showed no strong emotion, there was something kind in the way he moved. "I believe you are called Mira," he said. She nodded slowly, confused. "Yes, I'm just an intern," the man smiled slightly. "That may be what they call you, but you are more than that." She didn't understand. "Do I know you?" "No," he said. "But I know what you touched, and what you've awakened." Mira looked around, nervous. "I don't want trouble. I didn't mean to do anything strange." "You didn't do anything wrong," he said gently. "In fact, you did something that hasn't been done in many years." He turned and pointed to the shuttle's window. "This is not just a ship. It's a vessel tied to ancient systems, ones built long before this spaceport existed. When you touched the glass, the systems responded. They spoke back." Mira shook her head. "But why me?" "Because humans were once the key," he said. "Long ago, your kind helped design the Glimmer Code. It was built to work with your touch, your energy. The other species forgot, but the machines did not." She stared at him. "And who are you?" "My name is Joran," he said. "I am a watcher, a keeper of old things. And I believe you have started something important." Mira's voice was quiet. "I didn't mean to." "Many great stories begin by accident," Joran replied. "But the choices you make now will shape what comes next." He handed her a small cube. It glowed faintly in her palm. "This will help you understand," he said. "Use it when you're alone. And when the symbols come again, follow them." Mira looked at the cube, unsure. Joran smiled and stepped back into the shuttle. "We will speak again soon." The shuttle door closed with a soft sound. Moments later, the engines glowed, and the vessel rose quietly into the sky. Mira stood there alone, holding the cube tightly. For the first time, she felt like her simple life was about to change. Mira didn't sleep well that night. She kept staring at the small cube Joran had given her. It sat on her desk, glowing softly. No buttons, no wires. Just a smooth silver surface with a warm blue light at the center. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. She held it in her hands. It felt light, almost too light. She turned it around, but nothing happened. "Use it when you're alone," Joran had said. Well, she was alone now. She placed the cube on her bed and touched the glowing light gently with her finger. The light grew brighter. Then, without a sound, a beam of soft blue light projected into the air above the cube. Mira gasped and sat up straight. In the light, a floating image appeared, symbols, like the ones she saw before. But this time, they began to form into shapes she recognized. A map, a diagram, lines connecting circles and pathways. She watched as the shapes shifted and turned. Then, a voice, soft, clear, and not human, spoke from the cube. "Glimmer Code interface reactivated. Human signature confirmed. Welcome." Mira blinked. Hello?" No answer. She watched the floating image as it continued to change. It looked like a system, maybe a power grid, or a control layout. She wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. The cube was showing her something connected to the spaceport. And she was inside it. The voice returned. "System scan. Partial access. Restored. Further activation requires core access." "Core access?" Mira whispered. "Where is that?" The cube didn't reply. Instead, the floating image zoomed into one point far below the port. Under the main decks, deep underground. Mira felt a chill. What had she gotten into? The next day, Mira returned to her regular duties. No one around her knew anything about the cube. No one spoke of the silver shuttle. It was like none of it had happened, but someone was watching. From a high control room near the center of the spaceport, 2 officers stood in front of a large screen. They were not human, tall, thin, with smooth golden skin and bright eyes that didn't blink often. They belonged to the Oran species, known for their deep knowledge and calm minds. One officer pointed to a screen showing the heat map. The old codes are active again, just like during the Keeper War. The second officer narrowed his eyes. And it came from a human intern? Yes, the same girl who touched the mirror shuttle. They watched video footage of Mira walking through the dock, holding the glowing cube in her hand. She didn't look like a threat. She looked curious. Shall we report to the council? The first asked. Not yet, the second replied. Let us observe. Sometimes the smallest leaf carries the strongest wind. Mira didn't know she was being watched. She spent the day moving boxes of data cores, helping fix a stuck supply drone, and answering questions from visiting technicians. But her mind was on the cube and what it had shown her. During her lunch break, she sat in a quiet corner behind the loading bay. She pulled the cube from her bag and held it again. It stayed quiet this time, just glowing softly. Core access. She whispered. She took out her work tablet and searched the port's floor plans. The public map didn't show anything below level 9, but Mira knew there were stories, old tunnels, storage rooms, and systems no one used anymore. As she studied the map, a soft voice made her jump. Looking for something? Mira turned around quickly. A boy stood behind her, about her age. He wore a basic worker's uniform, and his dark brown hair was messy, like he'd just run out of bed. His name badge said Tarin. Oh, no, just curious. He smiled. I saw you looking at the cube earlier. That's not standard tech. Mira hid the cube in her bag quickly. It's just something I found. Tarin sat beside her on the floor. You're not in trouble. I think it's cool. You know, this place is full of forgotten tech. People just walk past it like it's junk. Mira watched him carefully. Do you work here? Yeah, he nodded. Mostly in repair docks. Sometimes I help in the data vaults. She hesitated. Do you know anything about the lower levels? Tarin raised an eyebrow. Below level 9, not many go there. It's sealed for security reasons, whatever that means. Old systems. Old doors, most are locked. What if someone needed to access something? She asked. Tarin grinned. Then they'd need a strong reason. Or a really old access code. Mira felt the cube in her bag warm slightly. I might have one, she said softly. That evening, Mira returned to her dorm. She was tired, but her curiosity burned stronger than ever. She took out the cube and activated it again. This time, the glowing image returned faster. The map appeared again. She pointed at the area below level 9. Show me the core access, she said. The image zoomed into a small chamber with 3 circular doors. Then it showed a pattern of lights: blue, gold, blue, green. The voice spoke once more. Core key pattern unlocked. Gate available at Terminal B Service Lift 3. Mira's heart beat faster. She looked at the clock. It was late, but not too late. The service lifts would still run for cleaning crews. Maybe she could get down there without anyone noticing. She packed the cube in her bag and quietly left the dorm. Outside, the hallways were quiet. Lights dimmed to evening mode. She reached the service area near Dock B and found the old lift. It was dusty, unused, but still powered. Mira pressed the button. The door opened with a soft hiss. She stepped inside. As the lift began moving down, the cube in her bag glowed brighter. A strange calm filled her heart. She didn't know what she would find, but deep down, something was calling her, and this time she was ready to listen. The lift moved slowly, humming with quiet energy. Dust floated in the air, dancing in the soft blue light coming from the cube in Myra's bag. Her fingers curled around the strap of her bag as she watched the level numbers on the wall drop lower and lower. Level 10, level 11, level 12. Then nothing. The numbers stopped, but the lift continued moving. It was going beyond the known levels shown on the spaceport map. Myra's heart pounded. Her mind kept repeating the same thought. This isn't part of the regular port. This place was hidden. Finally, the lift stopped. A soft chime rang, and the door opened with a whisper. Before her stretched a long hallway, dimly lit with pale golden lights. The walls were old and smooth, unlike the modern panels above. Strange patterns were carved into the surface curves, and symbols like the ones the cube had shown her. Myra stepped out slowly, her boots making soft echoes on the floor. She followed the hallway until she reached a round room. In the center stood 3 large doors. Each one had a glowing circle above it. One was blue, one green, and one gold. The same colors she had seen in the light pattern. She took out the cube. It pulsed in her hand. A soft beam of light came from its side and touched the doors. The blue door lit up first, then the gold, then the green. One by one, they pulsed in the same order. Blue, gold, blue, green. The final pulse was followed by a loud click. The green door slid open with a low hum. Myra held her breath and stepped inside. The room beyond was quiet. Not dusty like she expected, but clean, cold, and filled with old machines. Everything looked untouched, like time had stopped here. In the center of the room stood a tall pillar of glowing crystal, surrounded by strange metal arms that floated in the air, gently turning. Myra moved closer. The cube in her hand floated up by itself, rising slowly until it reached the top of the pillar. Then it locked into place. The pillar glowed brighter. The floating arms began to move faster. A soft wind blew around her, even though there was no opening. Lights danced along the floor and walls. Then, the same calm voice from the cube echoed through the room. Core interface now active. Human. Presence confirmed. Myra looked around, amazed. A holographic image appeared in the air, a map of the galaxy, with dozens of points connected by lines. Keeper network partially damaged. Restoration required. Command access limited. Myra raised her hand. Can I fix it? There was a pause. Access level unknown. Further connection needed. Suddenly, a new voice echoed through the room. Not from the machine, but from behind. Her, you came. Myra turned around quickly. It was Joren. He stood in the doorway, calm as always. His green eyes focused on her. I wasn't sure you would follow the signs, he said. Myra stepped back. How did you find me? I've been watching. Ever since the moment you touched the shuttle window, he said gently. You're not just part of this, Myra. You've awakened something no one else could. She looked at him, unsure. I didn't mean to. I don't even understand what I'm doing. That's how most great things begin, he replied. Not with knowledge, but with instinct, curiosity. He walked over to the glowing pillar. This is the heart of an old system, built by many species. But it was humans who gave it a soul. Myra frowned. A soul? Yes, he said. The keepers learned long ago that machines could not understand fear, love, or hope. But humans, you live through those feelings. That's why your kind was once trusted with the keys to systems like this. She looked at the floating map. So what does this do? This system once connected colonies, defense platforms, and knowledge vaults across the stars, Joren explained. It allowed the keepers to share wisdom, warn each other, and protect life. Myra stared at the glowing paths on the map. Some were lit brightly, others were dark. What happened to it? She asked. It was lost, Joran said. When? The old alliance fell. The systems went quiet. Some feared the machines, others simply forgot. And now? She asked quietly. Now it's waking up again, he said. Because you woke it. That's why I want to invite you to help me, to restore what was lost. Mira looked at him with wide eyes. Me? I'm not a scientist or an engineer. I'm just an intern. Joran smiled gently. You may be called an intern, but your actions show something else. You think, you listen, you follow what others ignore. That's what we need. He pulled a small device from his coat and handed it to her. It looked like a badge, shaped like a star with a small circle in the center. This is a keeper marker. He said, it will allow you to move freely in places most cannot go. With it, you can work beside me. Learn, explore, and one day lead. Mira held the badge in her hand. It felt heavy, not in weight, but in meaning. She looked back at the glowing cube locked into the pillar. If I say yes, what happens next? Joran's voice was calm but clear. Then your real journey begins. And together we bring back the light of knowledge to a galaxy that has forgotten it. Mira thought for a moment. The stars outside had always felt so far away. She had dreamed of doing something great, of being more than just an assistant. Now, she was standing inside a forgotten system that once connected entire worlds. She looked at Joran and gave a small nod. Okay, I'll do it. His eyes brightened. And for the first time, he smiled fully. Then welcome Mira, keeper of the mirror code. The next morning, Mira stood in front of a large black door. The badge Joran had given her rested over her uniform. It glowed softly, reacting to the ancient energy of the spaceport. The hallway was quiet, but her heart wasn't. She was about to enter the Velen Council chamber, a place where few humans had ever gone. Joran stood beside her, calm as always. They won't believe me, Mira whispered. Joren looked at her. They don't need to believe you. They only need to listen. The door opened with a soft hum. Inside, the chamber was bright and wide. A tall circle of chairs surrounded the center, where Myra now stood. On each seat sat a different species members of the Velen Council. Some had long necks and sharp eyes. Others had wings, or glowing skin, or smooth metallic features. They all stared at her. A voice spoke, smooth and firm. It belonged to Counselor Dren, a silver-skinned Orin with calm eyes. This meeting is unusual. You bring a human intern before U.S., claiming she has touched the Glimmer Code. She didn't just touch it, Joran said. She activated it. Mira held her breath. Another counselor leaned forward. She had a long golden face and shining robes. The Glimmer Code hasn't responded to anyone in over 200 years. We've tried, Joran nodded. Because the code was designed to respond to humans, and this human has reconnected it. Soft murmurs spread through the council. Counselor Dren raised his hand. Let the girl speak. We will hear her words. Mira stepped forward slowly. She held the glowing badge in her hand. I didn't know what I was doing, she said honestly. At first, I thought it was just a mirror, just a reflection. But then, the shuttle window lit up. And then the system started showing me things, symbols, maps, patterns. Some counselors leaned back. Others leaned closer. She continued. I followed the signs. They led me to the core below the station. I saw a pillar. I placed this cube in it. She held up the cube. And it spoke to me. It said I was part of the system, one counselor scoffed. That could have been a trick. Anyone could say those words. I'm not lying, Mira said quietly. Counselor Dren looked at her. What did it show you? Mira pointed to the floating display above the table. A map of the stars. A network of connections, some glowing, some dark. It said the network was broken and needed help to repair. The room fell quiet. Then Joran stepped forward. I have studied the keeper systems for years, he said. Never once did the interface react to me. But when Mira touched it, the system came to life. Because long ago, humans were trusted to control it. Another counselor shook his head. Stories. Old myths. Humanity arrived late in space history. No. Joran said firmly. They were forgotten, not late. Their history was buried during the time of silence. But the machines remember. He turned to Mira. Show them. Mira nodded. She touched her badge, and the cube lit up. The same soft blue light rose into the air. The map of the ancient network appeared, glowing brighter than before. More lines had lit up since her last visit to the core. This is what I see now, Mira said. The system is growing. It's waking up. One counselor, a creature with 3 eyes and soft violet skin, leaned forward. If what she says is true, then this is important. But dangerous. Another counselor spoke, his voice cold. It also means the humans have access to technology none of us can control. Mira looked down. Joren turned to the council. She hasn't taken anything. She hasn't used the system for power. She repaired it. She followed the signs without fear or greed. That is why she should be trusted. A pause filled the room. Then Counselor Dren stood. His eyes met Mira's. We must vote, not on her truth, but on her role. Should this human be given limited access to the ancient systems for study and assistance? The counselors began to speak in their own languages. Lights above each chair changed color as the votes were made. Mira stood still, her heart beating like a drum. Finally, the lights stopped shifting. Counselor Dren looked down, approved. He said. Mira let out a breath she didn't know she was holding, but then he added, limited access only. She will be watched, studied, guided, and if she fails to act with care, access will be removed. Joran bowed. That is all we ask. Later, as Mira and Joran walked back to the service hall, she felt her legs shaking. They don't trust me, she said. They don't trust anything they don't understand, Joran replied. And you are something new. I don't feel special, Mira said. I just feel confused, he smiled gently. That's how every great journey begins. They reached the dock, where Joran's silver shuttle waited. The window still looked like a mirror, but now Mira could see the soft light behind the glass. You have access now, Joran said. Enough to explore the outer systems. Enough to find the broken links and fix them? She asked. That part, he said, is up to you. Mira looked at her reflection in the shuttle window. A human girl, just an intern. But something inside her had changed. The machines remembered her kind. And now, the galaxy would too. The stars above Velen Delta shone brighter than ever. The ancient keeper system was now fully awake. Its network stretched far across the galaxy, touching places no ship had visited in hundreds of years. All of it had begun with a single moment when a young intern named Mira had touched a shuttle window. Now, that intern stood at the center of something far greater. Inside the main council chamber, the leaders of Velen Delta sat around the tall circle of seats. This time, Mira did not stand. Off to the side, she stood at the center of the room. The glowing cube floating beside her. Joren stood proudly behind her, hands folded, calm as always. Counselor Dren leaned forward. Mira, he said with respect, we have seen what the keeper system can do under your guidance. You have awakened its network, discovered lost colonies, and reconnected defense points. We owe you our thanks. Mira nodded quietly. She didn't speak right away. She was never one to enjoy attention. I didn't do this alone, she said finally. The system was just waiting. I was only the first to listen. But it listened to you, Counselor Dren replied, and that matters. Another counselor stood. We believe the time has come to act. The system has found several uninhabited planets. Rich in life, calm, stable. We would like to form a new exploration team. And we want you to lead it. Mira's eyes widened. Lead? Joran smiled behind her. You have already done more than many trained officers, the counselor continued. And we believe the Keeper system will continue to respond to you best. We will support you with ships, crew, and resources. The rest is up to you. That night, Mira walked alone through the quiet halls of Velen Delta. The cube floated. Beside her, its light, soft, and peaceful dot, she reached the shuttle bay and stopped in front of the same transport window where everything had started. The surface was still smooth, still reflective. Just like a mirror, she stared at her reflection. She no longer wore the plain gray clothes of an intern. Her uniform was now a deep blue, with silver lines and a star symbol on her sleeve. She looked older, stronger, but still herself. She smiled. Funny, she whispered. It all started right here. The cube pulsed gently, as if a green dot behind her. Joran's voice came quietly. Are you ready for what comes next? She turned around. Maybe not, she said honestly. But I'll go anyway, he nodded. That's what makes you the right person for this. 1 week later, Mira stood on the deck of a brand new exploration vessel, the Starreach. It was a medium-class ship, smooth and fast, built for long travel. A small but skilled crew joined her, humans, aliens, and hybrids alike. They trusted her. She could feel it dot before takeoff. She walked to the central control room. The cube settled into a docking space near the main screen. When she touched the surface, the screen lit up with the Keeper map. New lights continued to appear. Silent beacons, empty worlds, broken stations waiting to be found. She placed her palm on the console. Mission start, confirmed. Outside the ship, docking arms lifted away. Lights turned green. The Starreach began to rise. From a viewing deck above, the council and station residents watched the ship glide forward, then turn toward open space. It passed by the glowing defense rings of Velen Delta, then disappeared into the star's dot as the ship moved farther into the dark reaches of space. Mira stood on the bridge. Her hands rested on the glass rail as she looked out into the unknown. Behind her, a crew member called out, "Approaching unmarked planet in Sector 3. Scans show rich atmosphere. No signs of technology." Joran, now part of her advisory team, stepped up beside her. "A perfect first step," Myra nodded. "Let's begin the scan and mark it for gentle landing." The crew got to work. Suddenly, the cube glowed again, this time brighter than before. On the screen, new symbols appeared. Ones Mira had never seen. "What's that?" she asked. Joran's brow furrowed. "It's something old. Older than the Keepers. I've never seen these shapes." The cube spoke softly. "Primary beacon located. Ancient link detected. Prepare for contact." The ship's lights dimmed for a moment, then steadied. On the screen, a new map unfolded, this time showing a large region beyond even the Keeper records, dotted with symbols, rings, and energy trails. It looked like a forgotten part of the galaxy. "What is this place?" Mira whispered. The cube pulsed again. "Origin path. Human DNA confirmed as connected." The room fell silent. Joran stepped forward slowly. This is where it all began." Mira looked at him. "You mean Earth?" Joran shook his head. "No, older than Earth. Something before." Mira felt her chest tighten. Not from fear, but from wonder. "Set a course," she said softly. "Let's find out." As the Starreach turned toward this mysterious region, Mira looked out at the stars once more. They no longer looked cold or unreachable. Now they looked like doors, each one waiting to be opened. The mirror that once showed only her reflection had turned into a window to the universe. A voice echoed in her mind, calm, clear, and full of promise. "Human interface trusted. Journey restored. welcome home." Mira closed her eyes, smiled, and stepped forward into the stars. The next few days passed in a blur for Myra. She was no longer just an intern. Her name was now known among the engineers, the keepers, and even some of the high-ranking officers. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with doubt. But Myra didn't let it stop her. With Joran's help, she was trained in the use of ancient keeper systems. They taught her how to read the symbols, how to listen to the system's voice, and how to send safe activation signals. The badge on her chest gave her access to areas few people had ever walked through. Still, it wasn't easy. She made mistakes. Sometimes the code refused her touch. Sometimes the lights dimmed and systems froze. But the cube always helped. Its soft glow reminded her that she was connected to something far bigger. One morning, as Myra worked in a forgotten control room near the station's lower core, the cube lit up suddenly. The lights flickered. The room vibrated. Then came a soft chime. Warning, cosmic storm approaching. Impact in 6 hours. Myra stood still. The map that appeared in the air showed a red line heading toward Velen Delta, a swirling cloud of energy huge and fast-moving. She touched her badge. "Joran, can you hear me?" His voice came through the badge immediately. "Yes, I see it too. Meet me at the central chamber, now." In the council tower, lights flashed red. Alarms echoed through the halls. Officers rushed to terminals. Ships were told to delay departures. Incoming traffic was ordered to wait in orbit. Inside the tall circular chamber, the council gathered once more. This time, their faces were serious. Counselor Dren stood and spoke. "A level 7 cosmic storm is heading toward the station. Energy pulses have already disabled outer satellites. We may lose power if it hits at full force." Another counselor asked, "How long do we have?" "Less than 6 hours," Dren replied. A voice spoke from the side of the room. Myra stepped forward, holding the cube. "We don't have to lose anything." All eyes turned to her. She continued, "The keeper system has protocols for this. It can activate a shield layer around the station." Joran nodded beside her. "It's called the Awakening Protocol. But it needs to be fully connected first." One counselor frowned. "Connected? To what?" "To her," Joran said. "Only. Mira can do it. The system responds to her alone." Counselor Dren stood silently for a moment. Then he gave a single nod. "Then let her try." Mira rushed through the deep tunnels beneath the station. Her boots echoed against the floor. She clutched the cube tightly in her hands. Joran followed close behind. Calm but alert, they reached the core chamber, the tall room with the crystal pillar and floating metal arms. The cube floated up again, locking into place above the pillar. Lights flashed. The ancient machines whirred to life. The floating arms began to spin faster. Mira stepped forward. The pillar glowed brighter as she touched it with both hands. The voice returned. "Command interface. Human detected. Awakening protocol locked. Final link required." "What final link?" she asked. A new map appeared. It showed 3 small outposts across the station. Their lights were dark. "They're the power anchors," Joran said quickly. "They stabilize the shield system. Without them, the shield will fail." "I'll go," Mira said, already turning. Joran caught her arm. "You can't do it alone." "I don't have a choice," she replied. "It needs my touch, remember?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Then I'll guide you." The first outpost was hidden behind an old storage chamber. The door was jammed, but Mira forced it open. Inside, the system panel was dark. She placed her hand on the surface. The cube glowed from her pocket. "Anchor 1, active." The lights turned green. She smiled, but didn't wait. There wasn't time. The second outpost was deep near the lower airlock chambers. The path was tight and full of broken wires. Joran cleared the way while Myra found the panel and activated it. Anchor 2, active. One more. The third was the hardest. It was near the outer hull, cold and shaking slightly from the storm winds outside. Myra's fingers were numb as she reached for the panel. Sparks flew as she pressed her palm to it. Anchor 3, active. Her badge blinked 3 times. Go, Joran said. Back to the core. They ran. Behind them, the lights flickered again. The storm was close now. Outside the window panels, the sky had turned a deep purple. Lightning danced in space. Small rocks and dust crashed against the outer shields. Inside the core chamber, Myra returned to the pillar. The system was already waiting, all anchors active, awaiting final command. Myra raised her hand. I'm ready. The lights burst into motion. The entire station hummed with power. The floating arms spun like wheels of light. The crystal pillar shot a beam straight upward, through the ceiling, and out into the sky. The shield activated dot from outside. A soft wave spread across the station like a bubble. A dome of energy formed around Velen Delta, glowing blue and gold. The storm slammed into the dome, but it held strong. Inside the control rooms, council members stared in awe. We're safe, Counselor Dren whispered. The system, it worked. Hours later, the storm passed. The sky returned to calm. The lights inside the station stopped flickering. Systems stabilized. No major damage had been done. The crew of Velen Delta began to breathe again. Myra stood. Inside the core room, tired but smiling. The cube floated down into her hands once more, its glow now softer. Warmer. She had done it. Joren walked beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You didn't just awaken a system, he said. You awakened trust. Myra looked up at the stars outside. Once she was just an intern. Now she was the one who had saved a station full of lives because she had followed the signs. And because she had believed. And somewhere deep within the system, the Keeper network responded. Human interface confirmed. Status trusted.